If you're planning on buying someone a guitar for Christmas this year, don't. Not until you've watched this video anyway. Obviously guitars, acoustic, electric, whatever it is, make amazing Christmas presents. I, in fact, myself got my first guitar for Christmas in 2003 when I was 13 years old, and now playing the guitar is literally my career, so getting someone a guitar for Christmas could be the thing that shapes their future. You never know. Or it could just be something that they get and they have a little bit of fun with every now and again. Both are great options. But oftentimes the person who is actually buying the guitar, and I'm going to assume that's potentially people watching this video, don't know what to look for. So that's what I want to talk about in this video and just give some advice to anybody who is looking to buy somebody a guitar for Christmas. As I already mentioned, I actually play the guitar for a living. I teach guitar lessons and I play live gigs, and that is how I earn my income. But more so from the teaching side of things, obviously I teach a lot of beginner guitar players, people who have only just recently got their guitar and then they book in some lessons. And the amount of time somebody walks into my office with a guitar that I look at and I just think that even I would struggle to play that guitar. I've been playing guitar for over 20 years, and if that was what I had, I would struggle. Because one of the most common things I hear, especially from parents buying a guitar for their child, is, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a really, really good guitar in case they don't like it. Whilst I agree with that logic, obviously you don't want to waste your money on something that they're not going to bother with. I want to explain why in practice it doesn't really work that way. Because honestly, a lot of really, really cheap guitars are barely playable. They're not built with the best materials, they're not built to the best standards, and therefore trying to play a cheap guitar can be very, very difficult. And if you're just starting out playing the guitar, or you're buying a guitar for somebody who is just starting, their first experience of playing the guitar is going to be with something that is difficult to play, and they won't have a frame of reference with a better guitar to know that it's any different. The amount of times I teach a student and they bring this guitar and I hold it and I think this is going to be a challenge for them to play, but I don't want to tell them at the same time. I don't want to say, by the way, that guitar that you've got is garbage, because that's not nice to hear, but believe me, I think it. So I let them kind of play their guitar for a little while, and then if I can see them struggling with something, I will then hand them one of my guitars and say, try it on this. And the amount of times they look so surprised, why is it so much easier to play on your guitar than this one? And there's various reasons for that. So this is my Fender guitar. This guitar is actually more of an expensive one. It's not ridiculously expensive, but it's not a cheap guitar either. Anyway, one of the most common things you see with cheaper guitars is the strings. The height of the strings is really, really high up. So you can see I'm pulling the string away from the fretboard there. An awful lot of cheaper guitars, the strings just kind of rest in this really high position there. So when it comes to pressing the string down, you have to press down even more than you would normally to be able to actually get some sound out of the guitar and get some notes. Whereas if I hold this a little bit closer, you can see on my guitar, the strings naturally sit really close to the wood there, so that when I want to press down on some of these notes, I barely have to do anything, which is going to make playing it a lot easier. So if the strings were really high, it would take twice as much effort to press down, and that is a very, very common thing on cheaper guitars. And then again, with no frame of reference to a better guitar, people will just assume that all guitars are hard to play because they've got nothing to compare it against. And if they find it really difficult to play, they're just going to get bored and not want to do it. So straight away, buying a cheaper guitar to see if they like it will probably lead to them not liking it and putting it away and never picking it back up again. Whereas if you spend a little bit more money at first and get something that's built a little bit better, which I will give examples of later, then they might have a better initial experience of playing the guitar and actually stick with it longer, and who knows, maybe even forever. And as I mentioned earlier, cheaper guitars, they're not really built with the best materials. And this leads to a few issues with the guitar itself. One of the main ones is actually having a guitar that stays in tune. A guitar is a very carefully designed and carefully crafted thing. Every part of the guitar needs to work with the other parts of the guitar to get the best out of it. And if anything about the guitar is off, then the whole playability of the guitar will suffer. And as I said, one of the main things is tuning issues. The amount of times people bring a guitar to my office, and when I'm playing their guitar, for the life of me, I cannot get the thing to stay in tune. No matter how much I tweak this and put it in tune with a tuner, it'll be in tune for 1 second, I'll play something, and then it's gone out of tune again. And that could be various reasons why that happens. That is a whole separate video. But basically, the short answer is that the guitar is just not very good. And again, if you're just starting to play the guitar, you might not know that your guitar is not staying in tune. You might think it's your playing. You might think that everything you play sounds really bad, when really what you're playing is absolutely fine, but the guitar is not in tune, so it sounds not as good as it should, basically. And again, I've had that experience an awful lot when I'm teaching students, when they're playing something and they think it sounds really bad. So then I give them my guitar, a guitar that's built better and does stay in tune, and I say, play it on that. and then they play the same song and it sounds great. And suddenly they realize that it's not them. They're not playing badly. The guitar just doesn't sound very good. And if you're just starting to learn to play the guitar and it doesn't sound good no matter what you do, again, it's going to be discouraging. You're going to put the guitar down and you're not going to want to pick it back up again. So again, buying something cheap just to see if they like it and see if they stick to it will probably lead to them not liking it and not sticking to it. And I genuinely think if more of my guitar students first walked into my office with a guitar that was half decent, more of them would still be playing the guitar now. Because unfortunately, it's usually the opposite. People walk into my office with something really cheap that's difficult to play, therefore they get bored, they get fed up, they get frustrated, and then they put it away. And there's so many other reasons why buying a cheaper guitar isn't going to be a good thing for somebody who is just starting to learn to play. But it all leads to the same fact that it's just not going to give someone the best experience. And in my many years of teaching guitar lessons now to beginners, unfortunately, more of the ones that turn up with the cheaper guitars are the ones that end up quitting. So the obvious question is, well, what actually is a good guitar and what isn't a good guitar? What is a good amount of money to spend versus what isn't a good amount of money to spend? Because obviously if you don't know what you're looking for, and I guess you just search guitars on Google, Amazon, something like that, you're going to get given so many options, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you might just pick the cheapest one. As I've already mentioned, not the best option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump on my laptop and I'm going to go through a few different things and show you what would be good and what wouldn't be good. So let's just take a look at that now. So firstly, let's look at Google, and let's just assume you don't know what you're looking for. So you just type guitar straight into Google, go to the shopping tab and start flicking through some of these results. So straight away, I would absolutely say stay away from anything that is under £100. That doesn't mean that anything under £100 is garbage, but it just puts you in a better likelihood of getting something that is not. So anything like this at £49, £50, immediately I would stay away from. You know, we're starting to get a bit more expensive now, but honestly, the amount of times I see kids bring these sort of guitars to their guitar lessons, and whilst obviously they function as a guitar, they're really difficult to play for reasons I mentioned earlier. The strings are so high off the fretboard, it takes so much effort to press down, it hurts their fingers. They're not going to be comfortable guitars to play. So again, still £62, stay away from things like this. Absolutely stay away from these guitars here. I mean, a lot of times parents for their younger kids, they buy them smaller guitars, which makes sense when they're a certain age. Like obviously if they're very young, a full-size guitar is going to be a bit drowning, isn't it? So something that is smaller is a better option potentially to start with, but you know, oftentimes they're just, again, not built very well, so they're not easy to play even though they're smaller. So what I'm going to do is on the shopping tab, I'm going to click on this £100 to £250 filter. Straight away now we're getting some better options. If you look at this one here, £158. This is a Fender acoustic guitar. I've seen some students bring this exact guitar to lessons. I think my brother has this guitar as well. It's a decent guitar, especially for someone who is just starting out. I mean, Fender, I'm wearing a Fender t-shirt. Fender is a great brand. So buying from a very trusted and long-standing guitar brand like Fender is not going to be a bad option. £158, I would absolutely buy that for a beginner guitar player. Now, this is an interesting one. We're seeing these kind of things here. Rock Jam, full-size electric guitar, and they come with amps and everything. These things look all right. And if I'm being honest, when I first started playing the guitar, I got something very similar to this. I got a guitar with a little amp and all the stuff. It got me started, but I'm speaking from experience when I said that I didn't have the best initial experience of learning to play because the guitar that I actually got wasn't the most comfortable to play. But these things here will just kind of be built to make and function as a guitar, but they won't be the most playable things, you know. And these amps, these very, very small amps, whilst it's good to have one, they don't sound very good. So potentially stay away from anything like this unless we see something a little bit better that I can kind of say, you know what, go with that one. Now kind of looking at more electric guitars, the Fender Squire. Again, it's Fender, and Squire, you might have heard of that, is Fender. It's their kind of like cheaper range of guitars. It's like their, you know, beginner level, entry level guitars. So buying anything that's got the name Fender on it, even if it says Squire as well, is going to be a lot better than buying some kind of no-name brand like, what was that one a minute ago, Rock Jam. Stay away from anything like that, and if you can kind of go with this one, I mean this one, £130 is cheaper than this one here, you know, and buying this with all those other accessories sounds like a good option, but this is a better guitar, and this actual guitar itself, if you get this, I guarantee it will be built better than the other one. It'll be better to play, and this could lead to somebody sticking to the guitar way more than the other one, because you could also potentially get the amps, the straps, the picks, whatever it is, and still it'll be cheaper than spending all of that money on a bad guitar. East Coast are alright, I believe. I haven't heard too much about them, but I know that they're kind of something to do with Andertons. Yep, there it says Andertons. I think it's their kind of like in-house brand of guitars. I'm not entirely sure on that, but you know, Andertons are a very reputable guitar store, so anything that they sell will be checked over by actual musicians or people who know what they're looking at, so they will send out a guitar that's actually had some decent eyes on it at first. So anything that you buy from Andertons, I'm pretty confident with. This doesn't look too bad either. I've never heard of a Fasley Outlaw Series Sheriff. Never heard of anything like that, but that looks like it might be a decent guitar. And again, £126, so definitely over that £100 mark. But another thing I'd say is, if possible, if you're buying a guitar for someone who's around the age of 10 onwards, don't buy a mini guitar. See, there it says mini guitar. Stay away from those for various reasons. The shorter scale of the guitar lends itself to all sorts of problems like the tuning issues and things like that, and them just not being very playable and not sounding very good. So obviously, unless you're buying a guitar for somebody who is very small, try to not buy them a mini or a short scale or a 3/4 or a quarter size guitar, because I've seen that a lot and they're just not built very well. So immediately just go to a full size guitar if possible. Some decent options there on Google. Now, other ones that we could look at is, this is Argos. I actually got my first guitar from Argos. I think my first guitar, obviously not the exact same one, is kind of still here. Yeah, this one here, this Encore, that is what I got for my first guitar. £159, so it's above that £100 kind of threshold, as I said. And you get a bag, you get a guitar, you get an amp. That wouldn't be too bad. It's not going to be the best, but it's going to be better than some of those other options. I would absolutely stay away from, again, the £40, £80 guitars like that if possible. Definitely stay away from these things here. These Third Avenue quarter-size junior electric guitars. I've seen these brought to lessons an awful lot, and they're practically toys. They're not guitars. They kind of function as a guitar. Sure, you can tune them, but they won't stay in tune. They're not going to be good to play. They're genuinely just oversized toys. So stay away from anything like that. So Argos kind of only go up to around about the £150 mark for their guitars and things like that. So if you want to buy a guitar from, say, Argos or something like that, something like this Encore thing, I would recommend out of all of these, you know. Or even this one. This would be a great guitar. Yamaha is a very good brand. I'm assuming most people watching this have heard of Yamaha, not just for guitars. They make motorbikes, keyboards, all sorts of things. Yamaha are a very good brand. They've been around a long time. So a Yamaha full-size acoustic guitar, £140, would be a pretty decent guitar. Okay, so let's have a look at another option now. So one thing I actually recommend to a lot of my students is a brand of guitars called Harley Benton. I've actually had a couple of Harley Benton guitars. I've still got one. I've recently sold one because I didn't use it as much. But this top guitar here, the top seller, £139, I actually have that exact guitar. And that's how much I paid for it. I've gigged with that guitar. I use it every day when I'm teaching. That is a pretty good guitar. Harley Benton are kind of known for being really cheap, but really good. You know, and a lot of people at first were asking the question, how is this possible? How can these guitars be so cheap, but they're so good? Because obviously when you associate a cheap price tag with a guitar, you're not used to getting a certain level of quality that Harley Benton actually provides. And again, as I mentioned with East Coast guitars, with Andertons, there's another very reputable guitar store called Thomann. They're actually based in Germany, I believe. And Harley Benton are Thomann's in-house guitars. And again, all of these guitars will be looked at by either professional musicians or just musicians in general, or people who really know what they're looking for. So if they're going to send a guitar out, they're going to send a guitar out that's been seen to quite well. So let's have a look at some of these options. So £139. You can get things like this, an electric guitar kit. Stay away from those for the time being. No one needs to really bother with building their own guitar at first if you've never even played the guitar before. But anything here that you are seeing which is over £100 will be pretty decent, I guarantee, you know. And they come in all sorts of different shapes. These Harley Benton guitars are actually modeled aesthetically off real guitars, like, you know, very famous looking guitars like your Gibsons, your Fenders, your ESPs, everything like that, Ibanez. They kind of make their own versions of those guitars, and for that reason they're very appealing to a lot of beginners, because they might think, I love Metallica, I want a guitar that looks like a Metallica style guitar, but I don't want to spend thousands. So you can get a guitar like this. This looks like the sort of guitar James Hetfield from Metallica plays, and it's £333, which might sound like a lot of money, but I guarantee if you spend £333 on that guitar for someone who loves Metallica, you know, as an example, that guitar will see them through a long time potentially. It'll be set up well, it'll play well, it'll stay in tune. You know, it already kind of puts them in the right sort of, you know, realms of being close to getting that Metallica aesthetic themselves, you know. So I would absolutely pick something like that. EMG as well, without getting into too much detail, this relates to the things that actually create the noise on the guitar, called the pickups, EMG pickups. Even the professionals use EMG pickups, so that's probably why that is a £333 guitar, is probably largely to do with the pickups, you know. Let's have another quick look down. This is like a Les Paul style. We got a left-handed one as well, so make sure that obviously if you're buying a guitar for somebody, you know whether they're left or right-handed. £250, that would be amazing, I'm pretty sure. Watch out for this word as well, baritone. Don't buy a baritone guitar for anybody if they're just starting out. A baritone guitar is something a little bit different from a regular guitar. Don't get a baritone guitar. I mean, look at here. A Harley Benson Trans Red Deluxe Series, £250. That guitar there looks like the Brian May guitar from Queen. If you bought an actual Brian May guitar, if you even can, I'm pretty sure you can, they would be very expensive. £250 for the guitar that looks like Brian May's. You can't argue with that. So all of these would be amazing options. So I absolutely recommend to anybody who just wants to start out playing the guitar, Harley Benson are great guitars to look at. And this is just on the Thomann website. Now, the last option that I want to look at very quickly is a bit of a different one. It's, believe it or not, Facebook Marketplace. You know, why Facebook Marketplace is because oftentimes, if you're lucky, somebody might be selling quite a decent guitar at a cheap price because they just want to get rid of it. So you might actually end up getting something really good, but paying nowhere near the actual price of what you would pay if it was brand new. But what I've done here on Facebook Marketplace is I've actually priced from £200 to £300, because I feel if you're looking on Facebook Marketplace, this is a really good minimum to maximum price, and you're going to get some pretty good options here. So £200 to £300, that's kind of what we're looking at. Let's have a look. You know, ESP, great brand. You know, this is a brand that Metallica use. They use the ESPs, and the LTDs are kind of like the cheaper versions, just like the Squiers are the cheaper Fenders. LTD guitars are the cheaper ESP guitars, but they will still be built to a pretty good standard, you know. Ibanez here, an Ibanez Gem Junior. This would be an amazing guitar to get for someone who is just starting out. This guitar looks like the guitar for Steve Vai, who is a very famous and very well-known guitar player, and he has this kind of guitar going. Obviously, his Ibanez models, his versions, are multiple thousands of pounds, so £250 for a guitar that looks just like it, with a brand like Ibanez attached to it, that will be built pretty well. That'll be an amazing guitar. £250 is an absolute bargain. The only downside to Facebook Marketplace is you might have to make a bit of a trip to go and pick something up. It depends where the actual item is. Or if you pay for postage, it might be quite expensive. Gretsch, that's a great brand, that's £300. That would be a fantastic guitar. An Epiphone Les Paul. I've just sold my Epiphone Les Paul recently. I had a guitar very similar to this, and I sold it. £300 for an Epiphone Les Paul. Epiphone are to Gibson. I've got Gibson on my hat. Gibson are the more expensive brand. Epiphone and Gibson are very much partnered together, just like Fender and Squier and LTD and ESP. They're all kind of like the more expensive one, and they're kind of like the beginner level of that company, you know. So Epiphone are related to Gibson. That would be an amazing guitar. But basically, anything that I'm seeing here, I'm actually seeing an awful lot of guitars that would be pretty good to have if you're just starting out. So that's kind of a quick look if you're going to buy someone a guitar for Christmas, things to kind of look for, things to not look for, basically. You know, so of these options, if I had to pick, I would immediately go straight to the Harley Benson as something to kind of look at to find someone a guitar. And they will actually have bundles as well where you can get a little amp, like there's one. £225 for the guitar that I have, with, you know, a bag, some picks, a strap, cable, tuner, and an amp as well. That would be awesome. So there you go, there's just a little guide and a little bit of information if you're planning on buying someone a guitar for Christmas, things to look for and things to potentially avoid. If you have already bought someone a guitar for Christmas and you now thinking maybe I've bought something that isn't very good, don't worry, you know, give them the guitar anyway, and if you can kind of see an initial enthusiasm for it as quick as possible, try and then maybe think about upgrading that. If you have any questions when it comes to buying a guitar, then please comment them below. I will definitely reply, because more than anything, I want anybody who is being bought a guitar for Christmas to have the best experience and to enjoy playing and just to see where it takes them, because I never knew when I first started learning to play the guitar that it would literally become my job. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave it a like. Leave me a comment anyway, let me know what you think. And if you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please do. I make lots of guitar and music related content, and hopefully I will see you next time.